Marcus Hayes looked me in the eye and said they were eliminating my position effective immediately. My name is Richard Morgan, 51 years old, Senior Systems Architect at Tech Vision Solutions in Seattle, Washington. 17 years I spent building their entire technical infrastructure, from basic spreadsheets and manual processes into sophisticated automated systems generating $4.2 million in annual revenue. 17 years designing proprietary inventory management, custom client databases, and workflow automation that processed every critical business function. When Marcus, with HR Director Jennifer Cole sitting beside him, announced my role was being eliminated as part of organizational restructuring, and I needed to pack up by 5 p.m., I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I simply smiled, said, "I understand completely," and walked out of that conference room knowing exactly what Thursday morning would bring. By noon the next day, their entire operation would be paralyzed by cascading system failures only I could resolve. Have you ever watched executives confidently destroy their own company because they mistook complex technical expertise for easily replaceable work? The meeting happened at 2:30 on a Wednesday afternoon. Marcus Hayes' assistant called at 2:15, requesting my immediate presence in conference room B. No context, no agenda, just an urgent meeting request. I'd worked at Tech Vision Solutions since 2008, starting as their first dedicated IT professional when they were a 30-person regional logistics company. By 2025, they'd grown to 200 employees, expanded into 6 Western states, and managed inventory and client operations for 83 corporate accounts. Every single system supporting that growth existed because I built it. When I walked into that conference room, Marcus sat at the head of the table, Jennifer Cole to his right with a folder containing official termination paperwork. No small talk, no preamble. Marcus opened with corporate efficiency. "Richard, we appreciate your years of service, but we've made the decision to eliminate your position. The company is restructuring our technical operations to reduce overhead costs. Your role will be terminated effective today. Jennifer has your separation package. 17 years of building their entire technical foundation, and I received 2 sentences of explanation." Jennifer slid the folder across the table without meeting my eyes. Standard severance package, 2 weeks per year of service calculated to 34 weeks of pay. Continuation of health benefits for the severance period. Standard non-disparagement and release agreements. Everything processed with corporate efficiency designed to minimize legal exposure and get terminated employees out the door quickly. I reviewed the documents while Marcus shifted uncomfortably and Jennifer maintained her professional HR demeanor. The termination letter cited organizational restructuring and position elimination, without specifying any performance issues or cause. Standard procedure for companies wanting to reduce headcount without wrongful termination liability. After reading through the separation agreement, I looked up calmly. "I understand you believe the systems I built are easily managed without specialized expertise. Can we discuss transition planning, system documentation handover, administrative access transfers?" Marcus waved his hand dismissively, that particular gesture executives use when they think they're addressing unnecessary concerns. "Richard, your systems are well documented. We've hired a new technical team that will manage things fine. This is purely a cost reduction measure. Nothing personal." Those 3 words, nothing personal. As though eliminating someone's position after 17 years of dedicated service could somehow be impersonal, as though dismissing institutional knowledge and specialized expertise was just routine business. I nodded slowly, keeping my expression neutral. "Well-documented systems, new technical team. Understood." Then I stood, picked up the termination folder, and walked out without another word. Jennifer probably noted my lack of emotional reaction in her HR files. Marcus likely felt relieved that I wasn't making the termination difficult. Neither of them understood what that calm acceptance actually meant. Have you ever let people believe they're in control while knowing exactly what consequences their decisions will bring? Let me explain what I actually built for Tech Vision Solutions over 17 years. When I started in 2008, their operations ran on Excel spreadsheets, paper filing systems, and manual processes that required constant human intervention. They'd recently lost a major client because their inventory manager couldn't accurately track stock levels, resulting in 3 consecutive shipment failures. The CEO at that time, David Patterson, hired me specifically to fix those operational weaknesses. I spent my first year designing a custom inventory management system from scratch, coding the database architecture myself because they wouldn't invest in commercial software. That system tracked $2.1 million in inventory assets across 4 warehouses using barcode integration, automated reordering protocols, and real-time synchronization I programmed personally. Every subsequent system built on that foundation. The client relationship database I developed in 2010 contained 15 years of strategic information, purchasing patterns, communication histories, pricing negotiations, service issues, and account management notes from hundreds of client interactions. The workflow automation systems I implemented between 2012 and 2017 processed over 300 daily transactions automatically: purchase orders, shipping notifications, invoice generation, payment processing, and compliance reporting. All custom-coded, all integrated through protocols I designed specifically for TechVision's unique business processes. Commercial software couldn't handle their complexity without extensive customization that would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. My custom solutions worked flawlessly because I understood both the technical architecture and the business operations intimately. I documented everything extensively in technical manuals, system architecture diagrams, and administrative procedures. But documentation explains how systems work. It doesn't replace the institutional knowledge of how to fix them when they fail, or how to adapt them when business needs change. Marcus Hayes became CEO in 2022 after David Patterson retired. Marcus came from a finance background focused on cost reduction and profit margin optimization. He didn't understand technology beyond surface-level functionality. If systems worked when he clicked buttons, he assumed they were simple. He never saw the sophisticated coding underneath, the complex integrations maintaining data integrity, the layered security protocols protecting sensitive information. When he reviewed departmental budgets, he saw my salary and benefits totaling $140,000 annually and apparently decided that was excessive for someone who just maintained computer systems. This despite the fact that my systems generated $4.2 million in revenue by enabling operations that would have required 20 additional employees if handled manually. The mathematics seemed straightforward to me. $140,000 investment generating $4.2 million return equals excellent value. But Marcus evaluated costs differently. He hired a managed service provider that bid $60,000 annually to handle all IT operations, and apparently believed that meant they could replace me. The MSP proposal promised comprehensive technical support, system monitoring, and maintenance services, without understanding what TechVision systems actually involved. They assumed standard commercial software and conventional architecture. They had no idea they'd inherited 17 years of custom development, requiring specialized knowledge of proprietary code, unique integration protocols, and business-specific configurations. Jennifer Cole, the HR director, processed my termination with professional efficiency because that was her job. Execute executive decisions, minimize legal liability, maintain corporate policy compliance. She wasn't evaluating whether eliminating critical institutional knowledge was strategically sound. That wasn't her responsibility. Marcus made the decision. Jennifer implemented it. Neither of them considered what would happen Thursday morning when my systems required oversight I no longer provided. Do you think they asked the MSP technical team if they could actually manage custom-coded architecture before eliminating the person who built it? Wednesday afternoon, after leaving that conference room, I returned to my office and began packing personal belongings with methodical precision. Family photos, personal books, coffee mug collection accumulated over 17 years. Nothing belonging to TechVision came with me. No files, no code repositories, no documentation beyond what existed in company systems. I'm not someone who steals or sabotages, but I am someone who understands intellectual property law and knows exactly what I developed independently versus what belonged to the company. During 17 years, I'd built systems on company time using company resources, which meant the code itself was company property under standard employment agreements. However, the algorithms underlying certain critical functions, the architectural methodologies I'd developed, and the systematic approaches I'd created were intellectual property I'd generated through independent professional expertise. Those weren't company resources. Those were my professional knowledge that I'd applied to solve their problems. The distinction matters enormously under intellectual property law. I'd consulted an attorney 3 years earlier when Marcus first started making comments about optimizing technical costs. Attorney named Patricia Hughes, specializing in employment law and intellectual property rights. She'd reviewed my situation and explained that while the code I wrote belonged to TechVision, my specialized knowledge, my architectural approaches, and any methodologies I'd developed independently were my intellectual property that couldn't be compelled from me after termination. She'd also explained that post-employment consulting is entirely voluntary and that former employers cannot force terminated employees to provide specialized services without negotiated agreements. I'd filed formal intellectual property documentation with her office documenting my development of specific algorithmic approaches and system architectures, just precautionary planning, professional protection of my expertise. Now that planning would prove valuable. By 4:30 Wednesday afternoon, I'd packed everything personal and left my office completely clean of any items that weren't company property. I took my separation agreement paperwork, my personal laptop that had never connected to TechVision networks, and walked out of the building I'd entered faithfully for 17 years. Several colleagues stopped me in the hallway, clearly aware something was happening. Sarah Mitchell, the operations manager who'd worked with my systems daily for 9 years, looked stricken. "Richard, what's going on? There are rumors you're leaving." I kept it professional. "Position eliminated, Sarah. Organizational restructuring. Nothing personal according to Marcus." She understood immediately. "They eliminated your position. Who's going to manage the systems?" I gave her a sad smile. "Apparently, Marcus believes they're well documented, and the new technical team will handle everything fine. I'm sure it'll work out exactly as he expects." Sarah's expression suggested she understood the subtext. She'd watched me troubleshoot complex system issues hundreds of times. She knew the difference between documentation and actual expertise. But what could she say? She was operations manager, not CEO. The decision was made above her authority level. I wished her well and walked out to my car. Drove home through Seattle traffic thinking about Thursday morning's inevitable discoveries. My wife Elizabeth met me at the door, saw my face, understood something significant had happened. "They let you go?" I told her about the meeting, about Marcus's dismissive confidence that systems I'd built over 17 years would be fine without me. Elizabeth, who'd supported every weekend I'd spent fixing critical issues and every evening I'd stayed late implementing new features, said exactly what I needed to hear. They're going to learn exactly what they just lost. Then she opened a bottle of wine, and we spent the evening discussing whether I wanted to consult independently or find another corporate position. By midnight, I'd decided. Independent consulting focusing on custom enterprise architecture. Companies that value specialized expertise and institutional knowledge. Clients who understand the difference between managing simple systems and building sophisticated technical infrastructure. Have you considered that being fired might actually be an opportunity to work with better clients who appreciate your professional capabilities? Thursday morning, I woke at my usual time, but didn't commute to TechVision's office. Instead, I opened my home office laptop and began drafting service agreements for independent consulting. By 9 a.m., my phone started ringing. First call came from Sarah Mitchell at 9:14. "Richard, the inventory system is showing synchronization errors. Nothing's updating correctly. The new IT team says they need administrative access credentials to reset the protocols. Do you have documentation for that?" I kept my voice professionally neutral. "Sarah, I no longer work for TechVision. All system documentation should be in the IT resources shared drive. Administrative access credentials are stored in the encrypted password management system. The new technical team should have received all relevant materials during transition planning." Long pause. "Richard, there was no transition planning. Marcus said you left everything documented. The IT team can't find encrypted password system access, and the documentation doesn't explain how to reset inventory synchronization." I'd anticipated this exactly. I understand that's frustrating, Sarah. Unfortunately, I'm no longer employed by TechVision and can't provide technical support without proper consulting agreements. You'll need to work with Marcus and the new IT team to resolve these issues. I disconnected before she could ask more questions. 3 minutes later, Marcus Hayes called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Richard, this is Marcus. We're experiencing some technical difficulties this morning. Need you to call immediately and walk our new team through some system issues. His tone suggested he expected immediate compliance, despite having terminated my position yesterday. I deleted the voicemail without responding. By 10 a.m., my phone showed 14 missed calls from TechVision numbers. I answered none of them. This wasn't revenge or sabotage. This was simply the natural consequence of eliminating critical technical expertise without proper succession planning. Thursday afternoon brought escalating crisis that I monitored through professional contacts still at TechVision. Sarah Mitchell texted me privately, explaining the scope of failures. Inventory management system had stopped synchronizing at midnight, causing ordering errors that would cost approximately $200,000 in duplicate orders and stock shortages. Client relationship database had become completely inaccessible when authentication protocols expired, without automated renewal, that required administrative intervention I'd previously handled manually. Workflow automation stopped processing transactions when integration protocols failed validation checks, creating a backlog of over 700 unprocessed orders, invoices, and shipping notifications. The managed service provider technical team, expecting conventional systems, discovered custom code and proprietary protocols far beyond their expertise. They could restart servers and reset passwords, but they couldn't repair sophisticated architectural failures requiring specialized knowledge of how systems were built and integrated. By 3 p.m., TechVision's entire operation had effectively stopped functioning. 200 employees couldn't process orders, couldn't access client information, couldn't generate invoices or shipping documents. Manual workarounds required reverting to paper processes they hadn't used in 15 years. Marcus Hayes called me 6 more times Thursday afternoon. I answered the 7th call at 4:15. Marcus, this is Richard. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. Richard, what the hell did you do to our systems? Everything's failing simultaneously. This looks like deliberate sabotage. I'd prepared for this accusation. Marcus, I did nothing to your systems. I packed personal belongings and left all company property intact, exactly as required by termination protocols. What you're experiencing are normal technical failures that occur when complex systems lack specialized oversight. These systems require constant maintenance, administrative intervention, and expert troubleshooting. I provided those services for 17 years. You eliminated my position believing they were well documented and easily managed. You're now discovering the difference between documentation and expertise. Silence on his end. Then, more carefully, we need you to come in and fix these issues. Emergency consulting basis. Name your price. I'd anticipated this moment for 3 years. Marcus, I'm now an independent consultant. My emergency response rate is $300 per hour, 40-hour minimum commitment payment in advance. However, before I can provide any services, we need to address intellectual property considerations. Several critical system components utilize proprietary architectural methodologies I developed independently, which represent my intellectual property. I'll need licensing agreements in place before working on those systems. More silence. Then, angrily, you can't hold our systems hostage. You developed those on company time with company resources. Everything belongs to TechVision. This was the moment Patricia Hughes had prepared me for. Marcus, the code belongs to TechVision. The underlying architectural methodologies and algorithmic approaches are my intellectual property, developed through my professional expertise. My attorney can explain the legal distinction. I'm happy to provide consulting services once proper agreements are established. Otherwise, your new technical team will need to resolve issues independently. I disconnected. Marcus called back immediately. I didn't answer. Jennifer Cole called 20 minutes later. I didn't answer. Their corporate attorney called at 5 p.m. I didn't answer that call either. Instead, I texted Patricia Hughes. They're exactly where we anticipated. Ready to proceed with formal IP protection filings? She responded within minutes. Documentation ready to file. Want me to send formal notification to their legal counsel? I confirmed. By 6 p.m. Thursday, TechVision's legal team received formal notification that Richard Morgan claimed intellectual property ownership of specific system architecture methodologies, and that any attempt to reverse engineer or replicate those methodologies without licensing agreements would result in immediate legal action. The notification included detailed technical documentation proving my independent development of those approaches. Everything properly filed, properly documented, properly protected through legitimate legal channels. No sabotage, no theft, no wrongful action. Simply professional protection of intellectual property rights they'd failed to consider when eliminating my position. Have you documented your intellectual property contributions clearly enough that you could protect them if your employer demonstrated they didn't value your expertise? Friday morning brought the full scope of TechVision's crisis into focus. Operations remained completely paralyzed entering a second business day. 3 major clients issued formal complaints about service failures and inability to process orders. The managed service provider admitted they couldn't repair custom systems beyond their expertise and recommended bringing back the original architect. Marcus Hayes convened emergency board meetings to explain how eliminating one position destroyed the entire company's operational capability. Board members asked pointed questions about succession planning and knowledge transfer protocols that apparently never existed. Jennifer Cole faced scrutiny about HR procedures for critical technical positions. By Friday afternoon, Marcus called me personally from his cell phone. I answered, "Richard, we need to resolve this situation. What would it take to get you to restore our systems?" I laid out terms clearly. $380,000 consulting contract paid 50% upfront covering system restoration and 6 months of ongoing support. Formal licensing agreement for my proprietary architectural methodologies, establishing my intellectual property ownership, and granting TechVision usage rights. Written acknowledgement that my position elimination was hasty and that proper succession planning wasn't executed. Public statement acknowledging my technical contributions to company infrastructure development. Marcus tried negotiating. "That's excessive, Richard. You can't seriously expect us to pay that much." I remained calm. "Marcus, your alternative is rebuilding 17 years of custom systems from scratch. The managed service provider estimated 18 months and approximately $1.2 million to replicate what I built. My offer represents immediate restoration at substantially lower cost. Your operational losses currently exceed $50,000 per day. Every day you delay costs more than my entire consulting fee. The mathematics seem straightforward." More silence. Then, reluctantly, "I need to present this to the board. Can you hold off on formal IP actions until Monday?" I could be generous. "Monday at 9 a.m. I need written commitment to my terms, or I'll proceed with comprehensive IP protection filings that will make system restoration significantly more complex." "Your choice, Marcus." I disconnected. Patricia Hughes called 10 minutes later. "Richard, this is playing out exactly as we anticipated. You're in a very strong negotiating position. Don't settle for less than full terms." I assured her I wouldn't. The weekend passed with no communication from TechVision. I spent Saturday working with Patricia, finalizing licensing agreements and consulting contracts with proper intellectual property protections. Sunday, I drafted marketing materials for Morgan Systems Architecture, my new independent consulting firm specializing in custom enterprise infrastructure for mid-sized companies. Several former colleagues reached out privately expressing support and frustration with management decisions. Sarah Mitchell sent a long text explaining that 3 clients had already indicated they'd be seeking alternative service providers due to TechVision's operational failures. 2 senior operations staff members had submitted resignations, unwilling to work without functional technical systems. The company was disintegrating not because I sabotaged anything, but because eliminating critical technical expertise created a cascade of natural consequences that management hadn't anticipated. Monday morning at 8:45, I received an email from TechVision's corporate counsel accepting my consulting terms. Contract attached, payment authorization included, licensing agreements drafted. I reviewed everything carefully. They'd agreed to all my terms without modification. $380,000 consulting contract. Formal IP licensing acknowledging my proprietary methodologies. Written statement acknowledging insufficient succession planning. Everything I'd requested. I signed the agreements Monday afternoon and received the initial payment transfer within 2 hours. Then I drove to TechVision's office for the first time in 5 days. Marcus Hayes met me in the lobby, looking exhausted and considerably less confident than Wednesday's termination meeting. "Richard, thank you for coming. We appreciate your willingness to resolve this situation." I kept it professional. "Where should I set up? I'll need direct network access and administrative credentials." He escorted me to a conference room they'd converted to temporary technical workspace. The managed service provider team sat looking relieved someone was taking over. I spent 6 hours Monday restoring critical systems, resetting authentication protocols, and rebuilding workflow integrations. By Tuesday morning, operations were functional again. By Wednesday, normal processing capacity was restored. I spent the following 6 months providing the consulting support my contract specified, documenting everything thoroughly, and training the MSP team on system maintenance they could actually handle. But the sophisticated architecture, the complex integrations, the specialized troubleshooting, those remained my expertise that they now paid premium consulting rates to access. 6 months later, my consulting contract with TechVision concluded with systems functioning and proper support documentation established. During that period, 3 major TechVision clients had contacted me independently, requesting custom system development for their own operations. They'd been impressed by my technical expertise and reliability compared to TechVision's service failures during my absence. I accepted 2 of those contracts, establishing Morgan Systems Architecture as a legitimate consulting firm with reputable clients. The work was challenging, professionally rewarding, and compensated substantially better than my TechVision salary had been. I built custom solutions specifically tailored to each client's needs, documented everything thoroughly, and established proper knowledge transfer protocols so they wouldn't face single point of failure risks. Within 12 months, Morgan Systems Architecture had 6 enterprise clients and generated $700,000 in annual revenue. I hired 2 junior developers to assist with implementation while I focused on architecture and client relationships. The business succeeded because clients valued specialized expertise and because I delivered reliable, sophisticated solutions that improved their operations measurably. Professional reputation built over 17 years at TechVision transferred to my independent practice. Clients trusted my work because I'd consistently demonstrated competence, reliability, and ethical business practices. Those qualities don't change with employment status. They reflect personal professional standards. Meanwhile, TechVision continued declining. They lost 8 major clients during the operational crisis, representing $1.4 million in annual revenue. Employee turnover increased as talented professionals left an organization that demonstrated it didn't value institutional knowledge. Marcus Hayes faced board pressure and eventually resigned 18 months after my termination. The company merged with a competitor at a significantly reduced valuation. Industry analysts cited the operational crisis following elimination of critical technical expertise as a primary factor in the company's decline. Business publications ran case studies analyzing how poor succession planning and undervaluing specialized knowledge can destroy otherwise successful companies. My name appeared in those analyses as the technical expert whose elimination triggered cascade failures that management couldn't recover from. The professional community understood what happened. They understood that treating experienced professionals as disposable cost centers sometimes means destroying the institutional knowledge that made your company function. Have you considered whether your employer truly understands the value of your specialized expertise, or whether they see you as an interchangeable resource? Today, Morgan Systems Architecture employs 6 technical professionals and maintains 12 enterprise contracts, generating $1.8 million annually. We design custom solutions for mid-sized companies needing sophisticated systems but lacking resources for enterprise-scale IT departments. Our work involves the same technical challenges I enjoyed at TechVision, but conducted in an environment where clients appreciate expertise and compensate appropriately for specialized knowledge. When clients need complex architecture, They understand it requires experienced professionals and proper investment. When operational requirements change, we adapt systems efficiently because we built them with flexibility from the beginning. When technical issues arise, clients trust our expertise because we've consistently delivered reliable solutions. The business succeeds through professional competence, ethical practices, and genuine respect for client relationships. These are the same qualities I demonstrated at TechVision for 17 years. The difference is that now I work with clients who value those qualities rather than treating them as disposable overhead. Marcus Hayes taught me an important lesson when he eliminated my position to reduce costs. He demonstrated that corporate loyalty flows only one direction until it becomes financially inconvenient, that companies will discard institutional knowledge without considering long-term consequences if short-term financial projections look attractive. That executives often confuse documentation with expertise and assume complex systems are easily managed by anyone with basic technical skills. He was wrong about all of those assumptions, and his wrongness cost TechVision millions of dollars in losses, damaged reputation, and eventual corporate failure. But his decision also freed me from an environment that didn't value my contributions and created an opportunity to build something better on my own terms. Sometimes being eliminated from a position you've held for 17 years isn't a career-ending disaster. Sometimes it's the catalyst that forces you to recognize your own value and pursue opportunities that appreciate your expertise. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, but simply building a more successful enterprise while your former employer struggles with consequences of their own short-sighted decisions. Do you think Marcus Hayes ever connected his cost reduction termination decision to the company's subsequent destruction? Or did he convince himself it was just unfortunate coincidence? Looking back 3 years after that Wednesday afternoon termination meeting, I understand several important truths about professional relationships and institutional knowledge. First, specialized expertise is valuable precisely because it can't be easily replaced. When companies eliminate experienced professionals believing documentation equals expertise, they're confusing instructions with knowledge. Documentation tells you what to do. Expertise tells you why it matters and how to fix it when it breaks. Second, intellectual property protection is critical for technical professionals building custom solutions. My systematic documentation of independent development and proper legal protection of proprietary methodologies gave me leverage when TechVision tried to take everything I'd built without compensation. Without that preparation, I'd have had no recourse beyond accepting their termination terms. Third, professional reputation transcends employment relationships. The competence and reliability I demonstrated at TechVision followed me to independent consulting. Clients valued my expertise regardless of whether I worked for a company or independently. Your professional brand is yours, not your employer's. Fourth, being eliminated from a position can create opportunities better than the original situation. Morgan Systems Architecture provides better compensation, more interesting work, and complete control over business practices compared to my TechVision role. Sometimes losing security forces you to build something better. Finally, companies that treat experienced professionals as disposable resources eventually face natural consequences of that philosophy. TechVision's destruction wasn't caused by my actions. It was caused by management decisions that prioritized short-term cost reduction over long-term operational stability. I simply stopped protecting them from the consequences of choices they made freely. Marcus Hayes eliminated my position, believing they could operate without me. They discovered exactly how wrong that belief was. Jennifer Cole processed my termination with corporate efficiency, without considering whether it was strategically sound. She learned that HR procedures can't substitute for operational analysis. The managed service provider bid low to win the contract without understanding system complexity. They faced failures beyond their expertise. Everyone involved made choices based on incomplete understanding of specialized knowledge's actual value. Those choices created consequences I didn't cause, but also didn't prevent. That's not revenge, that's simply reality. If this story of professional expertise and intellectual property protection resonated with you, consider whether you're properly documenting your specialized contributions and protecting your professional knowledge through appropriate legal channels. Share your thoughts in the comments about how you've handled situations where employers undervalued your institutional knowledge. If you found value in this account of how specialized expertise combined with proper legal protection can create leverage when corporate loyalty proves one-sided, please hit that subscribe button for more stories from Revenge Tales with Luke. See you in our next story.